sports team here that's been a little hotter as of late, the Minnesota Wild, and whatever else you guys want to get into as well. But Declan, why don't you start us off?
Sure.
Let's kick the rust off Declan coming back from vacation here.
All right. My first statement on the Minnesota Wild is don't waste Kirill Kaprizov. Do not waste Kirill, who had a natural hat trick. The Minnesota Kirill Kaprizovs, I believe as Judd put it yesterday on Twitter, they won the game. Not the Minnesota Wild, the Minnesota Kirill Kaprizovs. And now we get trade deadline. This is probably one of the best weeks in the NHL, right? The deadline's coming up, I believe, on Friday at 3 o'clock. So the deadline's approaching here. Players are already starting to fly off the board. Teams are overpaying for bottom six dudes. The market goes up and then it goes down. It's going to be an absolute ride to watch. The Wild can't afford to waste the prime years of Kirill Kaprizov. And with him only being under contract for a few seasons after this, let's be honest. If he hits UFA status again, it's going to be a bidding war, and Kirill Kaprizov could bolt. This is by far the best player the Minnesota Wild have ever had. It's not close. Marian Gaborik in his prime, this isn't close. Parise in his prime, wasn't close. They've had great guys like Eric Stahl who have popped up and scored 40 goals for them. Still, not even close. You cannot waste a season from Kirill Kaprizov and a career of Kirill Kaprizov when you have a chance here where you're still kind of knocking on the door, potentially even winning this division. You're not just a bubble team on the wild card. The bottom of the Western Conference of the bottom feeders is really starting to distance themselves. The Wild are most likely going to be a playoff team. Where they fall in the seedings, we'll still have to figure out. But you cannot waste these prime years of Kirill Kaprizov. And if Bill Guerin wants to make this team better, make it a little deeper, so it's not the Minnesota Kirill Kaprizovs where opposing teams are just going to go off and try to shut him down, which is what the Vegas Golden Knights did 2 playoff seasons ago. You need to get him a little bit more help, so do not waste the prime years of Kirill Kaprizov.
I did a deep dive on this thought because I totally get what you're saying, and my statement is this. Maestro?
Oh, hold on. Sorry. Yeah.
Maestro?
See, I was doing the perfect segue there because I got off to a rough start last time and no one's ready now, huh? How about that? Don't get your hopes.
No, I thought you were going to react to Declan's statement.
No, I'm going to. No, I am.
Ignore Declan's statement.
I'm going to follow up Declan's statement with mine, which is how this show is built when it's really firing on all cylinders on a Monday. Don't get your hopes up. And here's why. All right. So, I do think that there's a chance that Bill Guerin makes a trade before Friday's deadline. He certainly has the cap space short term to do so. But one, he has already made it very clear, unless he's not telling the truth, and Bill Guerin shoots about as straight as any executive I've seen. So until he just flat out lies, I'm inclined to believe him a little bit more. One, he isn't going to give up a high draft pick. He said, I'm not going to give up top prospects or my first round pick. Two, the talent pool, because of trades already made, including Timo Meier being sent from the Sharks to the Devils, and there were about 3 or 4 trades yesterday. The talent pool when it comes to scoring is drying up, and it sounds like Patrick Kane is going to go to the Rangers, so he's still out there, but he's really not. 3, here's the other problem. 1 scorer in your top 6 is not going to save the day, not when, and I'd like to go through a list of players, follow along and comment as you will, not when Boldy, Greenway, Foligno, and Gaudreau aren't scoring. And even Eriksson Ek has 2 assists and no goals in his past 6 games. But I would like to give you sample sizes that are large enough that I think that we can confidently say there's no cavalry coming from within. And if you're going to add another scorer, that's great, but you need more help than that, okay? I'm going to go through a list of 4 guys here who are on various lines that play a lot. So I'm not doing like Ryan Reeves has no goals. Matthew Boldy in his last 13 games, no goals and 4 assists. He has 16 goals in 60 games, but no goals in 13 games. It gets way worse than that. Jordan Greenway, who might be traded. And by the way, if you trade him, you're just going to be trading him away to trade him to create cap space. So you're going to get really at this point, not much back. Jordan Greenway in his last 23 games, no goals and 1 assist. Jordan Greenway hasn't scored a goal since he scored a goal on New Year's Eve,
would
2022.
you say you do here?
2 goals and 6 points in 43 games.
And didn't want either Guerin or Dino have to sit him down and
Guerin did.
Reset
Guerin did,
the
and Greenway said, I didn't
expectations?
really need that, which is absolutely BS.
What do you think that conversation was like? Hey, Jordo, so you've done nothing for about 2 months now?
He didn't call him Jordo, and there were a
Jordo.
lot of F-bombs involved. I guarantee. Knowing Bill Guerin, there were a lot of F-bombs in play. Marcus Foligno. Last 33 games, 1 goal, 8 assists. 4 goals in 47 games. Freddie Gaudreau, last 18 games, no goals and 5 assists. He's got 11 in 60 games. Hartman has heated up of late, but even he has only 9 goals in 38 games. Now, they have talked about acquiring a guy by the name of James Van Riemsdyk, who we've talked about on Judd's Hockey Show, from the Flyers. James Van Riemsdyk, who ordinarily does score, this year in 40 games has 9 goals and 23 points. So he's playing about the same as Hartman has, who we have basically been down on, rightfully so, for not scoring more. So as much as I would love to say, hey, go get a center for Kirill, go get help for Kirill, the clock has been ticking, guys have been gone, and that's Bill Guerin's decision. And when I just went through a list of guys on your team who currently aren't scoring like that, I don't think one guy saves the day in the playoffs. Unfortunately, as Kelly Campbell, the former Viking, once said, I think it is what it is.
It is what it is. Okay, well, I'm going to transition into a statement to respond to Judd's statement, so we can keep the line going here. Okay.
The ball's being passed.
I trust Bill Guerin. I trust whatever he does this week. I trust, even if he doesn't make a splash move, I trust that it is with Declan's statement in mind. I don't think it's lost on him that they have a 25-year-old, in terms of like, the Wild's 20-year history, a generational superstar here that you don't want to waste. But if he determines that, you know what, this is not the week to make a big move for reasons X, Y, and Z, waiting until the summer or some other future date is the right way to go. I think Bill Guerin has earned the trust of Wild fans. How hard of a decision was it, maybe not for Judd, but to say to Zach Parise and Ryan Suter, guys, I know we make the playoffs pretty much every year with you. The road stops here for you. You get off the train now. We will eat cap space for multiple years just to get you out of here. Oh my gosh, what a risk. Wow, this guy comes in here, tells the owner, hey, we're going to do this. Has to convince Craig Leopold, right? It was the right move. They bounced back immediately. Playoffs. Now it's Kaprizov's team. There's room for young players to emerge. Eric Zanek has been better in the last couple of years. So, like, the big moves that he has made to this point largely have worked out. I think he deserves a chance to mold this thing around Kaprizov even further while they have to swallow the cap penalty here. Is it another year or 2 years?
2 more years of significant buyouts, yeah.
So I don't know if you guys disagree with that, but I trust Bill Guerin.
Keep in mind the Wild are pretty much still forming what is a regular playoff team with 15% less cap space than every other team in the NHL. Mm-hmm. So think about all the other teams that have a full list of cap space that don't have a $14 million penalty going against them, and the Wild are still knocking on the door of potentially winning the Central Division. It's incredible work by Guerin.
And it's amazing. We knew this was going to happen 10 years ago when those guys signed those contracts, 13-year contracts. All of us looked and said, okay, their window is like 5 to 7 years. And then those guys are going to either be out of their prime, borderline retired, or traded, and you're going to have a huge financial problem on your hands. So even knowing that, the fact that they're competing and in the playoffs, and they've bridged the gap to another superstar here that's even better than those guys were. He's done a really, really good job here. So I'm with that. Like, I think, Declan, you and I are on the same page. If there's a trade that makes sense, definitely make it happen in the next few days here. But whatever he does, I'm basically going to say, okay, I defer. All right, Billy, you've earned trust over the last 3 years or so. All
right, my next statement is just don't be afraid. Do not be afraid to make a move at the trade deadline, right? Like the Wild have the #1 prospect pool in the NHL, and we always talk about how great prospects are. Odds are a lot of these prospects that are in this pool aren't going to really work out for you. Now, there is an untouchable, in my opinion, in Jesper Wallstedt. I'm not touching him for anything. And Marco Rossi, I believe, is still going to be here long term. I don't know if he'll be called up this season. In fact, I'd probably put the odds that he is not called up, and hopefully by the start of next season, he's indeed here for the long haul, isn't just a up and down player, doesn't have to bake in the minor leagues anymore. But don't be afraid to move prospects. Kind of back to my original point of Kirill Kaprizov. You only have him here through the 2026 season. So you have 3 more years of Kirill Kaprizov. If that means you want to trade some prospects, trade some draft capital in that time period that you have Kirill, go ahead and do it. You know, we just talked about how the Wild have $14 million in buyout penalties that are hurting them, and they're still being able to formulate good teams. I'm not concerned too much about 2028 of, well, they didn't have the first round picks from 2022 through 2025. And yes, Chuck Fletcher traded them away like all the dang time like they were pieces of candy. But again, it didn't completely shipwreck you, right? You didn't become the worst team in the NHL for years and years on out. So don't be afraid to trade those prospects by the time the deadline does hit the buzzer this Friday.
Mm-hmm.
Examine your priorities. All of us, not just Declan. Examine your priorities, okay? I feel, again, I don't know why, I've been struck in recent days by how we as sports fans in this town, beyond, the Wild, but how we think. And I think our priorities get goofy at times. And I think it's the media does it, so it's our fault as well. But first of all, this Wild team right now, in a Western Conference, which, just to be clear, Colorado's coming. Colorado's coming on strong, okay? Colorado's coming on. Colorado's doing the smartest thing a Stanley Cup team can do. Tampa Bay learned this a long time ago when they had this unbelievable regular season and then got drilled in the playoffs by Columbus. Stanley Cup champions slow cook the season. There's no reason to go. If you are going to go pedal to the metal for 82, you're crazy. What you need to do is slow cook it. The Avs are coming. So they're going to be, in my opinion, the class of this conference at the end of the day. But right now, this Wild team, to their credit, has 72 points and is second in the Central Division. So number one, this team got you here. There's an argument to be made of, okay, allow it to play out. And here's why. And here's where the priorities get goofed up. We become so conditioned as a sports society to look at trade deadlines with teams doing anything and being like, got to make a trade. You got to make a trade. You got to add. It's not what the trade deadline was built for an executive standpoint. What our frustration, for instance, for a long time with the Twins wasn't every single year, you got to make a trade. It was, okay, this team looks like it, with a little bit of seasoning, could go a long way. This Wild team, though, it ain't there yet. And, I mean, Kirill Kaprizov, let me be very clear. What he did and what Dean Evison Sunday called Kirill's best game with the team came against the Columbus team in which the Wild, no matter what you heard or read, played crappy for 2 periods against a bad team. And then Kirill said, screw this, I'm going to beat a really bad team. So Kirill Kaprizov single-handedly beat, but guess what? Columbus ain't going to make the playoffs. So I think we have just become conditioned to go for it, Billy Guerin. Go for it. Just go for it. This isn't the year to. There are certain years, because the trade deadline doesn't bring you in a player who's going to win the playoff MVP. It brings you in some seasoning. It brings you in a final piece that might help you. But I say let this thing play out. And the second thing is, and you guys have both talked about this, but can we please stop, and Phil, it ordinarily drives you crazy, with Kaprizov might leave us if we don't do the right thing here. Kaprizov might leave us. Okay? First of all, Phil, I agree with you, which is I trust Bill Guerin to know what's best. You can't operate with the fear that Kirill Kaprizov's contract is going to come up and then, oh my God, he's going to leave. Because one, if he's going to leave, he's going to leave. And two, if you look at how things are constructed right now, and if Kaprizov trusts Bill Guerin, then he knows that he is going to build a team. So but the trade deadline thing, we've gotten really flawed there because it was meant to bring in pieces that can help you depending on where you are. It wasn't meant as this cure-all of, this is going to win you a Stanley Cup. And guess who is Exhibit A of that? Last season's Wild. Bill Guerin went all in.
I think my question would be, you guys correct me if I'm wrong on this, but like for next summer, for instance, the Wild are 26th in cap space. There's only 7 teams with a worse cap situation this summer than the Wild, right?
Yes.
So your path to improving your team, whether it's this week or in the summer, is trading. So if I guess if there's a move to be made, I guess my question to you is, why is now not the right time to make a move? Is the summer the right time to make a move? Because you're not going to have like $20 million in cap space to go get top 6 forwards.
The issue is the top guys are now gone, and those would have been. See, it's weird. So you can accrue cap space during the course of the season, which the Wild has done. So the Wild right now, I believe, still has at least $9, if not $11 million in cap space left for this season. That all goes away immediately. So if you had made a trade for Kane, Kane comes here, you might win, you might not, and then he just walks away. Like if you can make, and my point is, one guy is not going to get you where you want to go. You need an entire team. I just gave you a list of guys who need to be contributing. If they all were, then I would say, yeah, bring in.
But
Kane.
Is there a path for it to be fixed and put into contention for next season? Or are you saying that they're just sort of screwed for like the next 2 years?
I'm saying that you're going to have to do it through the cultivation of your young players. The only guy who intrigues me for right now is if you could make, and I think the answer to this I've checked is no. If you could make Brock Besser, who's got time left on his contract, work, I would take him. But the Canucks would have to take on some of the salary from Besser, and it would also, like, you would have to then trade the Canucks more. I would be curious because if the Canucks are going to do salary retention, it gets more expensive for you from a prospect standpoint that is going to have to go there. But the reality is I need more scorers. I need more of the young players to come up and fill this team out. And then I would look at a potential short-term move. Okay. Well, not on this team.
Okay. We'll see what was it Thursday? When's the trade deadline? Friday. Okay. So we got a few days
Friday,
here. Judd's
2 Central.
Judd's hockey show all over it. I have a non-Wild, non-Wolves one to throw at you guys in a second here, but I first want to take the audience and send them to mydullknives.com. That's right. If you are like me and you have recently suffered from dull kitchen knives, squishing tomatoes when you try to slice them. Last night, we made some turkey pesto sandwiches with tomato.
Oh.
I took one of my newly sharpened, professionally sharpened kitchen knives from Vivront at mydullknives.com, and I had the greatest poke and slice of a tomato that I've ever had in my life. It's a game changer. All of you out there likely have kitchen knives. My guess is close to none of you have ever had them professionally sharpened. You send your dull little knives on a vacation, and Vivront, with a professionally put together kit that's mailman friendly, mails them back to you all just within a few days. If you've never had your knives sharpened, check out this experience at mydullknives.com. mydullknives.com. My statement for you guys is, I love the pitch clock.
I'm glad you brought this up.
Boomers be damned, okay?
Yep.
And there was a bunch of controversy because one of the games, the spring training game, ended. It was bases loaded, 2 outs, 2 strikes, like a full count.
6-6 score.
Yep. Tie game. Or was it a tie game? Did they just end in a tie?
Yes, they just called the game off.
Okay.
That was it.
And the batter was not paying attention to the pitcher. He was in the box, but he wasn't looking at the pitcher with 8 seconds left on the shot clock, so to speak, the pitch clock.
Yep.
And that is a violation. And so the umpire, at first, the batter thought, oh, it's a balk or something, or I'm walking in the game-winning run, and the umpire's like, no, dude, you weren't paying attention. We got to go here. This isn't baseball. You need to give these guys more time. No. This was baseball when more people watched it, like 15, 20, 25 years ago. The average game time in spring training, it's like a 1-week sample here, has been cut from 3 hours and 1 minute down to 2 hours and 38 minutes by just getting rid of the idiot shenanigans, walking around the mound, all these these nervous ticks and things, adjusting your batting gloves, all call time, rub up the baseball, stuff that no one is tuning in to watch. You're cutting all of that fat and just getting it right down to the action, and I love it.
Isn't it fantastic? I love the pace.
I was kind of hoping you'd disagree, but
No, are you
No, he
kidding
loves
me?
this.
I've been trying to cut this thing down for ages now, and I love that's, well, baseball's meant to be like the slow nuances. I mean, if you hate this, you have nothing to do with your life other than sit there and watch games. And it's boring. I think it's fantastic, and I don't say this much. Kudos to baseball. Spring training, they're doing everything they can to emphasize every single rule so players know no one's going to be mad because it's spring training, right? I did not know this until I saw it in the Twins game against Tampa Bay. Joey Gallo on second base on Saturday afternoon. Shift violated by the Rays. I believe the second baseman was either even with the bag at second or slightly on the shortstop side. Time called. Gallo says, "Oh, good, I get to go to third." They said, "No, Joey, it's just a ball." But it's a ball. So I think that this has been implemented geniusly because unlike football, where it feels like week 1 is just a complete gong show, like they're going to have a month of games. So if you don't get this by the end of a month,
it's going to be a gong show in that month, just as it was this week.
But this is the time for the gong show. I enjoy this. Spring training games makes it more fun. Yes. But if you don't get it by the time the season starts, that's a you problem. I'm with you, Phil.
It's funny. Like, well, you can't. You got to give them 30 seconds instead of 15 seconds. No, 30 seconds is how we got here in the first place.
Yes.
The average pitch takes a freaking half hour. Someone reposted a video from a couple years ago. I think it was Zach Greinke playing for the Diamondbacks. And they superimposed in the background a full Kentucky Derby race between the time that Greinke threw his 2 pitches. So it's like, okay, here's the pitch, and then the Kentucky Derby starts, and Greinke gets the ball back, and he's rubbing the ball up, and then he gets on the rubber, and he's looking at the sign, and the catcher does the sign over again, then Greinke steps off, and then the batter steps out, goes and gets some more pine tar, and then Greinke asks for a new baseball, and the ball comes back, and they're coming around turn 3. Full Kentucky Derby race between pitches.
That's the other thing too that I love about this is that, and yes, I'm old, but I think young here. Baseball's done a lot of really cool things to make the game more intriguing. For instance, you throw over a third time, you don't get the guy, that's now a balk. Well, that's not baseball. No, it's more fun. Like, I'm sorry, and yes, I agree that I wouldn't want this for the playoffs. I think the guy on second to start the 10th, it might be a little premature, but I love it because it's strategy. It's immediate strategy that's forced.
You know what I would do? And I love a baseball purist. I would put a runner on second base every inning. Every inning starts with a runner on second base.
It does force
strategy.
Let's
go, baby. Let's get
more
to
runs.
it.
It's more runs there.
Let's beef up scoring. Let's beef up the action. Let's make it happen. That's probably a little extreme.
That's a little extreme.
But you can't put her. That's not baseball. They literally pull guys off the ice to make hockey overtimes go quicker.
Yeah. And by the way, the coaches have found a way to bleep that up.
Oh, here we go. You're going to rant about 3-on-3?
I did on JHS. I'll tease to it that I did it with Age.
If you want to hear an old man yell, No.
They've slowed it down. No, I'm all for speed. I'm all for let's make it more fun. The 3-on-3 idea is a great one. The only rule I think that I really object to in sports right now that's been implemented in the last 20 years is the shootout. I think that's the only one I don't like. 3-on-3 is great, but when it's done right.
I would love to see some variation of like 3-on-3. I'd rather see like 2-on-2 before a shootout. Just keep taking guys off the ice until someone scores a goal.
Anything that keeps a semblance of the game that you're supposed to be playing, which, by the way, baseball's doing. They're tweaking the rules, but they're not changing the game.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's amazing how some people can object to, like, let's move a little faster between pitches, shall we?
Well,
that's what baseball's doing. They're saying, look at what's happening in some of these games. Guys are taking a half hour between pitches. Stop.
And who likes to see 3:25 for time of game and a box score?
Dude, it's a TV show. That's what the NFL understands that the other leagues don't. Well, that baseball doesn't. I think the NBA gets it, and the NHL kind of gets it. But this is a TV show. That's where the bulk of the revenue is coming in, through TV. You are competing against all other things on TV. So if I tune into your sport And all I see for like 30 minutes is guys scratching themselves and walking around the mound and calling time and meeting of the minds on the mound, or like a laser hit right at a well-placed third baseman who's playing in short right field.
Oh, God.
What are you holding?
Got a little of this baseball bat. Got a little of this, little pine tar. Look at this pine tar, old school pine tar, huh? Got a little pine tar on there. Go
Stop
back
doing that to the
circle.
bat, actually.
Yeah.
You dirty old.
We're going to go
See?
before Judd
Who's
gets
a dirty
fired
old
here.
I got
man now?
Randy. You got to get in the studio.
Yeah, I do. All right.
All right.
See you guys.
Mackey and Judd. See you tomorrow.
Love you too. Bye.